Welcome to another edition of the DFS Report. I'm Brock Seguin. We've got Zach Laing on a reliable internet connection? Question mark.
Things are
Love to
coming
see it.
back right now. Let me tell you, I'm really excited. Happy to be here with stable internet connection. Got Wayne over my shoulder. Got section 134 from the old Rexall place over the other. We're back. We are back.
We are back. Zach, how was the game last night?
It was great. Not what I was predicting. I thought it was going to be a little bit more high scoring, but really tight checking game between the Oilers and Lightning. I ended up sitting in the 8th row in the lower bowl club seats. I was living large last night, man.
Love to see it.
Absolute blast.
That's great. Probably had more fun than we're gonna have tonight on this 2-game slate. Pretty gross. Pretty gross slate. It feels like a repeat of Monday night, which was also a gross slate. And I mean, we had a pretty decent night on Monday, so hopefully we can navigate the waters again tonight and put it all together and have another good night here on the DFS Report. Hopefully you guys won some money last night. The show, I think, had a pretty solid night, all things considered. I mean, our number one line to target was Colorado 1. And they did okay. 5 points for McKinnon, 5 points for Ranton. Him, no big deal. St. Louis 1 ended up being a pretty good value play. Nashville 3 came through, among others. So pretty solid night. I think the most disappointing spot for me was Florida 1. That I was pretty heavy on Florida 1 last night. And they just nothing happened in that game. So that was a bit unfortunate, but Colorado 1 absolutely nuked some other good spots. So hopefully we can find some more success tonight. Welcome in and smash that like button if you could. If you're watching on YouTube, listen to our guy Nick. Always here on time. He's here earlier than we are. It's impressive stuff. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, join the Discord, and let's fill the DK contest. He does our job for us. Thank you, Nick. Come on in to the Discord. Link is in the description of the video on YouTube. While you're there, smash that like button. Here we go. At least the games are staggered.
Give him some credit, I guess.
Yeah, give him some credit. Tomorrow, man. I mean, 14 games. Who wouldn't want a 14-game slate after watching these two dog shit games tonight? Who wouldn't want that?
Yeah, it's ugly, man. I was like, you guys are gonna hear me say it a million times on this show. I hate this slate, and I'm 20 maxing it for some reason, and I don't know why. This is going to be a really ugly one. You got the Rangers and the Sabres, two struggling teams right now. You've got one of my least favorite teams to stack in the NHL and the Anaheim Ducks and the Ottawa Senators. And I can never seem to get the Senators right either. So I don't really know what the hell is going to happen here. But there's some interesting spots, I think, at the very least here tonight. I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Sometimes I feel like a 20 max is like the only way to go on these slates because it's like there's just so much shit that can happen. You just have to spread out your ownership just and pray that you find the right lineup. But okay. Gotta look on the bright side, fellas. Today's slate is better than Friday's. There you go. There you go. Okay, here's our projected goalies for tonight's game. We got Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen expected to get the nod for the Buffalo Sabres. Igor Shesterkin confirmed for the New York Rangers. The Sabres did not hold a morning skate, so no real lineup news from them other than Matthias Samuelsson will be back in the lineup tonight for the first time in a while. I would expect that he replaces Ryan Johnson on the back end. The Ottawa Senators will go with Linus Ullmark. We're projecting to see John Gibson after Lucas Dostal lost in Montreal the other night. So those are your goalies. Here we go. The Sabres, who the Rangers, and despite the Rangers just awful performances recently, they are still road favorites, minus 139 in Buffalo tonight. 3.3 implied total, 2.9 for the Buffalo Sabres. The Rangers second to highest implied total on the night. Let's take a look at the matchups first. Pretty good matchups across the board here for the Buffalo Sabres. Not so much for the New York Rangers. So kind of interesting right away. We're already a little bit different than the sports books there. Not really a lot of hard matching going on from this Buffalo side of things. I went with matches. This is exactly how they matched up against the Red Wings the other night. Really the only game with that lineup that I had a sample for. So this is how they matched up with Detroit. Saw a lot of Buffalo 3 up against the top line. So I'd expect to see a lot of Buffalo 3 against the Panarin line tonight. Saw a lot of the first and fourth lines going head to head with what would be the Zibanejad line tonight. And the second line saw a lot of the third line, then kind of just a free-for-all against the fourth line. So, yeah, decent matchups. We'll start on the Buffalo side of things here. So they got the better matchups. Pretty solid matchup, 60% matchup score for Buffalo 1. We obviously know that we were talking about Buffalo 1 a lot the other night, and then all of a sudden, bang, flipped on us, and JJ Peterka was on that top line. I was able to pivot all my Peyton Krebs to JJ Peterka. And of course, Peyton Krebs went off, had 2 assists in the first period. And I think maybe Peterka had 1 shot on goal. But all things considered, this line's been very good. together this year. Peterka's been ice cold. You want to see him with Thompson, which is what we will get tonight. So this line's been outstanding this season, and they do draw a pretty solid matchup. I like Buffalo 1 a lot tonight. They graded as the third best line to target. They're projected for about 24% ownership, which is also the third highest. So we're basically right in line with ownership tonight in terms of the charts. Are you going to be over, under, or equal the field on Buffalo 1 tonight?
Yeah, I think for me, when I look at this slate as a whole, I'm probably going to just try and match ownership as best as I can in my stacks here. I do got quite a bit of interest in this Buffalo 1 line. It's pretty interesting when you look at things. Obviously, Tage Thompson is the big driver there offensively, bringing a great floor, 2.1 goals for per hour of ice time this season, 3 points per hour of ice time. Good shot volume, 10.7 shots on goal per hour. What's really interesting is he's kind of struggled against the Rangers in the past, only 3 goals and 6 points in 17 games. But when you look at Peterka and Tuck, these are guys that have really enjoyed going up against the Rangers. 4 goals and 6 points in 7 games for Peterka. Alex Tuck, 5 goals, 10 points in 13 games as well. I think this is absolutely a great spot to target here for them. I mean, I think it's worth mentioning too that like both of these teams are kind of really reeling right now. In the last 10 games played, the Buffalo Sabres at 5-on-5, scoring 2.25 goals for per hour. The Rangers 2.37 goals for per hour. So not a lot of great things happening here, but I think I do like this Buffalo side a little bit more than I like the Rangers side here tonight as a whole. Tage Thompson is obviously the guy who's garnering the most of that ownership up there on the top line, projecting around 34-35% right now. Peterka and Tuck coming in significantly lower. So, if you're trying to build and, you're 20 maxing, I think one thing that I'm going to do tonight is probably have some Buffalo 1 stacks where I leave off a little bit of Tage Thompson. Not saying that I'm going to do that for all of them, but I think that's an interesting way to kind of get yourself different from the field, which is something you have to really try and do here on a small 2-game slate like this.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. Like, I know that Peterka has obviously been terrible for like a month, but he's still a very talented player, and his price tag's very affordable at $5,400. I really like that he's only 14% owned. It makes me a lot more interested in full stacking this Buffalo 1 line because, yeah, they're projected as a whole for about 24%, but full stack looks like it's going to be closer to 15%. So I really like full stacking this line tonight and getting as much exposure to Peterka as I can. Feels like a really good one-off spot here. The loading up of the top line for Buffalo kind of leaves a lot to be desired for the rest of this lineup. They had some success against the Detroit Red Wings the other night, but I don't know how much interest I really have. Like Benson, Krebs, Cousins isn't a line that gets me all that fired up. The offensive metrics are pretty poor, despite scoring at 3.6 goals for per 60. The underlying metrics suggest that's not even remotely sustainable. And the same thing goes for this third line with McLeod, Zucker, and Greenway. I said it the other day when Buffalo was on the slate that most of my interest was coming in on Buffalo 1. I did have some interest on Buffalo 3 when it was Peterka, Kulich, and whoever. Kulich ended up being a healthy scratch, but Peterka moved up. So now that it's consolidated to one line, pretty much all my interest is on Buffalo 1. That the only other player that I really like, when I mentioned it on Monday as well, was Jason Zucker. I liked Zucker as a one-off play. He was on the second line that night. I feel the same way about him tonight. He's just been really, really solid, pretty consistent all season, pretty solid shot volume. Guy that's produced on the power play, produced at 5v5 at just $4,500. I like Zucker as a one-off. And you can see that in the ownership too, right? This third line, Greenway, McLeod about 5%, Zucker up around 12%, but still not a whole lot of ownership coming in on him either. So Zucker and Peterka around 14-12% here. Two are my favorite plays in kind of that mid-price range. What are you doing with the rest of the Sabres lineup after Buffalo 1?
Yeah, it gets pretty bleak pretty quickly, right? I mean, I would like to have interest in this second line here. I think Zach Benson is still a solid prospect. $3K, nice price point on DraftKings. The problem is with him and Krebs is there's just very, very little in terms of a floor there from these guys. I think Benson's probably got a bit of a higher floor just in thanks to a little bit more shot volume, but still 5.7 shots on goal per hour of ice time really isn't a whole lot for him. Dylan Cousins, I mean, this is a guy who we've been high on in the past, and he just cannot seem to find his way this year. Coming into $5,100, he's averaging only 8.5 DraftKings points per game. He's got some solid floor, and thanks to his shot and block volume. But it's kind of a real lack of upside there in terms of offense from that second line. The third line, I agree with you. I have some interest here, largely around Jason Zucker, $4,500. I think that's an okay price point for him here on this slate. The nice thing here is that he's actually generating the highest individual expected goals of any player in the top 9 for the Buffalo Sabres, 1.2 individual expected goals per hour of ice time this year, scoring 1 goal per hour of ice time. I think he's a really interesting play here. Ryan McLeod, Jordan Greenway gets pretty thin pretty quickly there. Ryan McLeod really offers you nothing as a floor. I don't think Greenway really does either. That being said, I think McLeod at $2,800, I don't hate the idea of playing a mini stack of McLeod and Zucker here. Ryan McLeod's interesting. 6 games played against the Rangers in his career, 2 goals and 7 points in them. One game earlier this season, he ended up with 6.5 DraftKings points, and thanks to an assist and a single shot on goal. But that's kind of what you need from Ryan McLeod, is you need to find a way onto the scoreboard, because he's only going to take, a shot, maybe 2 at most. I think it's an interesting play here tonight. Obviously, very little ownership coming in on these second and third lines here for the Sabres.
They were the better of the 4 lines for the Sabres the other night against the Red Wings. Not saying a lot. They didn't generate a whole lot at 5v5, but the Red Wings just couldn't get any goaltending from Ville Husso. The top line, or the Krebs, Cousins, Benson line led the way in terms of individual, in terms of expected goals for at 5v5, and then leading the way in terms of individual expected goals in all situations was Zucker and McLeod. So kind of similar to what you're talking about. They do generate chances. On a 2-game slate, it's worthwhile to get a little bit different. And I don't necessarily hate that play. I mean, still scoring at 5 goals, 4 per 60. Okay, now let's shift over our focus to this New York Rangers side of things, where, this team just has no pulse at all right now. There's just no signs of life. And I had a decent night on Monday. It could have been a lot better if they did literally anything. I don't like, it's so hard. If this was a 11 game slate like we had yesterday, I think I'd be pretty comfortable saying, I'm just out on the Rangers right now. They can't get anything going. But on a 2-game slate, you're kind of just pigeonholed into being like, let's find a way to play the Rangers because you have to. To me, it's basically just that top line again. Like, you look at it the other night, they basically had as many shot attempts for as the other 3 lines combined. So they're really the only line doing much of anything. That being said, despite having 20 shot attempts, clearly most of them were from the perimeter, generating just 0.37 expected goals for. So not great. In terms of like the raw data, Panarin was second on the team in individual expected goals. He also had 13 shot attempts in that game. So Panarin played 24 minutes, 13 shot attempts. I mean, that's the type of play that we need from this New York side of things. That line's obviously been great historically, but like, it's just it's so hard to buy into this team right now. That being said, that top line is expected to see 47% of their ice time against Buffalo 3. If you take a look at the metrics, Buffalo 3 is by far the worst defensive line that the Sabres have, giving up 3.5 goals against per 60, 14 high danger chances. This looks like a matchup in which New York 1 should come out on top. And they graded us our number 1 line to target, and they're projected for just 17.6% ownership. So this feels like a phenomenal play tonight, but it felt like a phenomenal play against the Blackhawks too, and just nothing really happened. So, you got to just kind of exercise caution here. It's either like they're going to figure it out and just absolutely nuke this slate, and you want to be kind of all in, or just say, you know what, I'm fading the Rangers. That's kind of how I'm viewing it. I'm probably a sucker for this line. I've always loved this line. I feel like, you take a look at those numbers from Panarin the other day. It's like, they're going to start going in eventually. And I hope you have a different opinion than me, because I feel like I'm all in, and I don't want to talk all the listeners into being all in. But if you're all in, then this is going to get ugly quick.
I kind of agree with you. I think you kind of all in here. I don't know, man. Like, it's a bit of a weird slate, right? And I think the biggest thing for me is, like, when you take a look at the ownership on this slate, and like New York 1 is coming in as like the 6th highest owned line on a 2-game slate. Like, that just doesn't feel right. And like, don't get me wrong, like, they screwed me over on Monday pretty hard. Like, I went really hard on the Rangers as a whole. I played a lot of all 3 of the lines, and I was really disappointed. And I agree. Like if this was on a bigger slate, like I'd probably be off of them or under the field on them. But at 18% ownership, like, man, it just feels like you kind of have to take the swing here,
We're all
go
in.
to the field and kind of go all in on them. I don't know, man. Like, because if they smash, they're going to smash. That's kind of the big thing here, right? Artemi Panarin has been excellent against the Buffalo Sabres in his career. 29 games played, 14 goals, 36 points. Trocheck and Laugh, they're both around a half a point per game. I don't know, man. Like, I might just go all in on Panarin and mix in some of the other guys here too, and kind of go from there with things and hope that, you know, Panarin just has one of those games where he takes over and puts up 3-4 points. You know, there's an interesting pace to this game too, like a 100.4 pace. That's probably above average. Obviously, it's red because it's the lower of the two here, but that's a solid pace score on any slate. So I think it's an interesting spot. You know, again, they've got the best matchup here going up against that third line of the Buffalo Sabres, which is kind of what you really want to see here, right? I mean, that line is giving up 3.5 goals against per hour of ice time. I don't know, man. I think you kind of just got to do it and bite the bullet here. And if you're wrong, and so be it. And then, you know, New York one's on our shit list for a little bit, but I don't know, man. It kind of feels like it's kind of what you got to do because it doesn't feel great for the second and third lines here. I mean, I've got some interest in them, mainly in that third line, I think more than the second line. But it's pretty bleak matchups for those guys.
You look at the ownership, and if they actually come in at like 17%, it's like, how do you not easily double that?
Yeah.
Like Panarin's under 20%. Like it's pretty easy to get 40% Panarin on a 2-game slate, especially considering it's fairly soft pricing, it seems, tonight. Yeah, we're all in. The chat seems like they're all in as well. Yeah, it's just so easy to get to them. And you know, you look at the last 10 games for these two teams. The Rangers, dead last in the league in expected goals against at 5v5. The Sabres, 6th worst in expected goals against at 5v5. So both these teams have been awful defensively. Could turn into a bit of a track meet. You mentioned the pace. Both teams are so bad defensively. You have to imagine there's going to be some goals in this game. The Rangers, like, they're too talented to be this shit. I don't know if it's just a complete lack of effort at this point. Like, they don't seem to really care. And that's the concerning part, is it doesn't seem like it's just like, oh yeah, it's a talent issue, right? Like it just seems like it's just a lack of give a shit issue for this team as a whole. You know, the second line grades out 11th best. They're projected for 17% ownership, the same as New York one. So it's pretty easy to just be like, yeah, I'm all in on New York one and whatever. I don't, you know, I liked Kreider and Zibanejad the other night. The price tags actually went up despite having a pretty ugly performance. I still don't mind them tonight. The power play report, they have the 3rd best power play advantage on the slate, which is obviously 2nd worst, whichever way you look at it. 20th best power play against 3rd-ranked PK. Sabres have actually been, you know, terrible defensively at 5v5, but pretty good on the PK. So you typically need the power play to help Kreider and Zibanejad. So yeah, I think I'm more interested in this top line by a lot. You know, they obviously have decent underlying numbers, but, you know, still not as good as New York one. The matchup's not as good as New York one. It's actually the worst matchup on the slate. They're going to see a lot of Buffalo 1, a lot of Buffalo 4. Both lines very good, especially Buffalo 4. I think that I'll probably play a little bit of them, but I'll probably be under the field and on New York 2, over the field on New York 1. And then I'll probably still put a little bit of this Heidel Cooley line in the mix. I mentioned the other day, Panarin led the team in individual expected, or was second on the team in individual expected goals that night. Will Cooley was actually number 1 and did score. So Will Cooley is a guy that likes to get to the dirty areas, generate high danger chances. When this is a team that's not really generating high danger chances right now, Will Cooley at least is participating. So I'm in. You know, their matchup is not great. They're going to see a lot of Buffalo too, which is pretty solid defensively, but these underlying metrics continue to be really, really good. So I'll probably sprinkle them in, but most of my interest comes in on New York 1 just because they deserve to be much higher owned. And this is crazy. It feels like Groundhog Day.
It really does, man. And I think I agree with you on the other lines here too. Like the way that I'm kind of looking at it here for the top 9, over the field on New York 1, under the field on New York 2, over the field on New York 3. You know, the Rangers third line, they're coming in with like 8% ownership right now. You know, they grade out okay as the 8th best line to target on the slate tonight. You mentioned Will Cooley. He's been really solid, generating a lot of high quality looks. Philip Hedl still gives you a bit of a floor with some shot volume. I think they're an interesting play on this slate here. Try and get yourself a little bit different from the field because, Will Cooley, 5% projected ownership, Philip Hedel, 14%, Capo Caco, 1.8% ownership. Like, I get it. Like, he may not be the greatest, player in terms of what he can provide out there, but there's upside there in this guy. He's got 6
goals. He might
need
one goal to be optimal tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. He's got 6 goals in 17 games played against the Rangers in his career. So, if he gets there with a goal or an assist or two, a couple of shots, I mean, that could be a real game breaker at $3,400 if he is coming in around 2, 3, 4% ownership. So I think there's a reason to like that third line here as a way to get a little bit different. They generate, a pretty fair amount of offense too. 4.4 goals per hour of ice time, 3.4 expected goals per hour. Their ice time's dipped a little bit down to 25% expected, but even at that, that's still a fairly solid clip as far as I'm concerned.
Tom says it's really easy to get different tonight. You just fade Ottawa 1 at 40% ownership.
Yeah, and like we'll get to that game in a minute too, which I think is really interesting as well. But it's pretty easy to get different on this slate by just not playing 40% Ottawa 1. So I don't know, man. It's gonna be a wild night of hockey. It feels like to me,
or just an awful night of hockey. One of the two.
And that's entirely possible too, man. Like we could see like 2-1 games here. Like it's very much in the realm of possibility. All 4 of these teams are really struggling to generate offense in their last 10 games here. And again, we're not really sure how much, past performances play into projecting the future, but like all 4 of these goaltenders have been really good in their career against these opponents. So I don't really know what to think of this slate as a whole. I think it's just plug your nose, jam in New York 1, fade a bit of Ottawa 1, and pray for the best.
All right, I think that's the end of the show. Here we go. We're out of here. You figured it out. That's the key. Okay, let's get to the second game here. Actually, really quickly, power play. The 2 worst power play advantages, both the 2 best penalty kills in that first game. Moving on to the second one. Really, really fun stuff here. The Senators 3.7 implied total, minus 227 favorites against the Ducks, who have been better as of late, but still not great. Matchups in this one, obviously outstanding across the board for the Ottawa Senators. Pretty meh across the board for the Anaheim Ducks, except for that second line. Okay, let's obviously start with Ottawa 1. They are projected for 40% ownership, yet they come in as our 5th best line to target. Let's dig into the numbers. So they're going to see a lot of the second line for the Ducks. They're also going to see a lot of the third line of the Ducks. So the Ducks' second line, pretty solid defensively. The Ducks' third line, worst defensive line in hockey, probably. Despite only giving up 1.5 goals against per 60, which just seems impossible given that they give up 40 scoring chances against. But I got to let you know that the Ducks lines are certainly not solidified. Leo Carlsson is expected to be back tonight. So we got it from this article. It's currently unknown which line Carlsson will center, but an educated guess is seeing him reunite with Cutter Gauthier and Alex Killorn, 2 players he has previously skated on a line with this season. I mean, sure, it's possible. It's also possible that Cutter Gauthier is still on the third line and Brett Leason's still on the second line like we saw last game. So I think the one thing that we know for sure is Vatrano, Strome, and Terry are going to be together. They've been awesome. The rest of this lineup, especially this middle 6, probably a total guess. McTavish, who knows where he's like, it's a guessing game. So it's hard to put too much faith in these numbers because we don't really know for sure, which is like really shitty on a 2-game slate. Hopefully Anaheim 3's together because they're horrendous and that'll make things fun. And honestly, I hope that Ottawa or Anaheim 2 is together. I mean, their offensive numbers are pretty bad, but the matchup with Ottawa 1 looks like it's very, very high event. Those 2 lines should trade chances all night long in that matchup. And then Anaheim 2 looks like a really good value. We talked about Gauthier the other night. Still didn't really do anything. $3,500. Killorn's okay at $3,100. Carlsson at just $4,700. I mean, they're coming at 6.3% ownership in what looks like a pretty solid matchup. I think very pretty good value. But Ottawa 1 is, as I mentioned, going to see a lot of that second line of the Ducks, which is great. So it's their best defensive line, but still not great. Ottawa 1's obviously been, really good at generating chances or solid at generating chances, not great at converting them. The thing about Ottawa 1 is that they're really cheap. And that's why they're 40% owned. Brady Tkachuk, $8,600. Josh Norris, $4,900. And Drake Batherson, $5,500. They also have the second best power play advantage of the night. The power play hasn't been very good, but they do draw a ton of power plays, and the Ducks PK is basically middling. So what are you doing here, man? Like Ottawa won 40% owned. You got Kachuk, you got Norris, you got Batherson. They are fully together on the top power play unit as well. That's why they're 40% owned. It's probably impossible to get over the field unless it's not.
40% ownership is like crazy high. Like even on a 2-game slate, 40% seems ridiculously high. I've got interest in Ottawa one. Don't get me wrong. Brady Kachuk, just incredibly high floor. 14 shots on goal per hour of ice time. He's generating an incredibly high rate of chances. 1.6 individual expected goals for this season, 1.6 actual goals for this season. He has been just tremendous here for the Senators. So I've got a ton of interest in him. I think my interest drops off a little bit when it comes to both Norris and Batherson. They're both putting up points, which is great to see. They don't take a whole lot of shots. It's basically like find Brady, get Brady the puck, and just let him rip it, which is fine. I mean, it's clearly working because they are generating a lot of offense, or in terms of chances at the very least. They're not quite converting on them. So I've got interest. I think I'm going to come in under the field on Norris and Batherson. I'll probably be at the field on Brady Kachuk, maybe even a little bit over, just on him as like an individual player at $8,600. I feel like he's pretty easy to fit into lineups here on this slate tonight. So yeah, I've got interest in Ottawa one. I don't know if I'm going to get there at 40% though. Ottawa 2 looks like they're in a pretty great spot here as well. Solid matchup score. Obviously, they're scoring a lot. 3.9 goals per hour is really nice to see. So they could be due for some regression here. Tim Stützle is shooting 5% over his career average. Adam Gaudette, I mean, this guy is $2,900 and is on like the heater of all heaters this year. I think it's like 13 goals in 26 or 29 games so far this season. I think he's a really great value play here tonight at $2,900. I'll be comfortable going over the field on him at 20% here tonight. Really interesting look for this top six. The third line, I mean, I don't really think I'm going to be getting there tonight. Shane Pinto, though, is drawing 19% ownership, which feels really, really high for a line that doesn't really do a whole lot out there. And Pinto himself, really not generating much of anything offensively this season.
Got some crazy numbers here for you. So the Ducks and Sens met already this month. The Ducks won 4-3 that night in Anaheim. Brady Kachuk, 2 goals. How many shots do you think he had that night?
Let's say 12.
Exactly 12 shots on goal.
Nailed it.
You did. Ridiculous. He had 12 of their 31 shots on goal. On the flip side, Troy Terry, 3 apples, 9 shots. Frank Vetrano, 2 goals, 1 assist, 3 shots. Ryan Strome, 2 assists, no shots. Classic Ryan Strome stuff. Man, 12 shots. Brady's had 12 shots in a game twice in like the last month. What a freak. Yeah, I like, to me, Ottawa 2 looks really good too. The offensive metrics are fairly similar. They come in much cheaper. They come in half as owned. I really like this Ottawa second line. I don't know if I like Gaudette quite as much as you do, especially at 20%. I think he is a nice value. We actually saw him play like 17 minutes, the other night, which is a huge jump from what we normally see out of him. The only concern for me is that, yeah, he's exactly that, on a heater. He's shooting north of 37% on the season, which is crazy. But at 29%, just need him to stay hot for one more game. $2,900. Only need him to stay hot for one more game. Yeah, just ridiculous stuff from Brady Kachuk. The chat loves the 12 shots on goal. So yeah, Giroux at $3,600 feels way too cheap. Stützle 7K is fine. I like them a lot. As John points out, I like Ottawa 2 with Brady. I think that's a good way to get exposure to Brady and get a little bit different. Obviously, you got Stützle on that top power play unit as well. So yeah, there's a lot of ways to target the Sens team. I'm interested in both these top 2 lines, but I think I'm going to end up coming overweight probably on Ottawa 2 and underweight on Ottawa 1. It's just so hard to get to 40%. Ottawa 3 is popping in the charts. I don't really know why. They also are popping in the raw projections at the highest points per 1,000 line on the slate. I mean, the matchup is obviously good. The offensive metrics, though, are just okay. I'll probably play them just out of pure curiosity at this point. Like, why they're popping in the charts so much, I do not really know. But I'm okay with it. I mean, they're there at $7,700. You want to talk about getting different? They're 9% owned. So I'll play some Amadio. I'll play some Cousins, I guess. Pinto, though, what did you say he's at? 19% ownership. He has exactly 0 points in his last 14 games, just 19 shots on goal. Brady Tkachuk almost has many shots in one game. But they play a lot, so
Yeah,
that's pretty
I
much
mean,
it.
I guess it's a spot to get different for sure. I cannot understand why Shane Pinto is 19%, and that's kind of what scares me about this. Is like there's something going on here that is saying that Shane Pinto is somebody that we should be playing tonight. What that is, I don't think either of us can really find out right now. But I think I'm going to have to mix him in just because of that. I think it's an interesting spot here. Again, they've got a solid matchup score. You know, they're generating a pretty good clip of high danger chances. And I wonder if that's where a lot of this is kind of coming from.
They just play a lot too, right? Like, I mean, they're projected for almost the same amount of ice time as the top two lines.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, when you take a look at the Anaheim Ducks too, what is the matchup here for Ottawa 3? 42% of their ice time against the top line, 26% against the third line. You take a look at the defensive numbers for the Ducks. That third line giving up 16.1 high danger chances against per hour. Maybe that could be a reason why there's this interest here in Ottawa 3. You know, if they're going to get these high danger chances here tonight in minutes against, you know, two lines that give up a fair amount of them, even Anaheim won 13.1. That's a pretty high clip there. Maybe that's where it's coming from. Maybe, you know, the thought is like, okay, these guys are generating a lot of high danger looks going up against two lines that are, you know, giving up a lot of them. You know, maybe there's something there, Brock. Maybe there is something there.
Let's focus on the Ducks really quick. I can't believe we've done 32 minutes on this slate already. Anaheim 1 or bust still, again, for me tonight. I don't mind Anaheim 2, but Anaheim 1's been so good. The matchup's obviously not great, but their offensive metrics are outstanding. They looked fine the other night, too. The shot volume is ridiculous. I could really don't care about Ryan Strome. I'll probably leave him off most of my stacks, maybe include him a little bit. But Vetrano and Terry look great. Terry's shooting the puck a lot more recently, giving him a better floor. Vetrano's just never shied away from a shot. So really like that top line. The second line, if it ends up being Carlson, Gauthier, and Killorn, that's like maximum interest for me. If the lines are a little bit different, then I'm going to cool on them quite a bit. But if those are the lines, I think that line's got a lot of potential. They haven't really shown it together so far this season, but they've been okay. So if that's the line at 6.3% ownership, they're probably one of my favorites in terms of just value and trying to, you know, really get over the field on a line. But it's gonna be a last minute decision if they're actually all together. So after that, really not a whole lot of interest. I don't mind Brett Leeson if he is still in that top six. Like if Gautier's back on the third line and Leeson's with Carlson and Killorn, I'm in. Like Leeson's had pretty good shot volume recently at $2,700. I'm fine with that. But any other crazy combinations of lines probably turn me off Anaheim pretty well. Worth mentioning still, though, this power play has been awesome. 9th best, going up against 25th ranked PK. They got the number 1 power play advantage on the slate tonight. You still got that top line fully correlated on that top power play unit, which helps a ton. Leo Carlson was on that top unit before getting hurt. Imagine he'll be back there as well. So Carlson feels like a solid play. Vetrano, Terry, and the bunch all feel like they're okay plays tonight. This is like these both feel similar to that Red Wings game against the Sabres the other night, where it's like they're either going to be 2-1 or 6-5. It would be the best if we get 2 6-5 hockey games tonight.
That would be great. It really would be. It'd be a lot of fun. Like, let's make this slate fun. Let's make the slate chaotic. I think that's what we need on a 2-game slate. You know, again, you've got 4 teams that are really struggling as a whole here. So, you know, some big offensive performances would be great. You know, it's kind of funny because I played that Red Wings Sabres game as if it was going to be a 2-1 game, and I regretted it like almost instantly. I'm not going to let that happen again here tonight. I'm going to play some of this 6-5 scenario, especially in my 20 max. Yeah, I've got some interest here in the Ducks. I agree with you on the top line, like Ryan Strome, just doing a whole lot of cardio out there. Really not doing a whole lot offensively. 6.4 shots on goal per hour of ice time. Nothing great to write home about there. But Toronto and Terry, I've got interest in them. You know, the rest of this lineup, this is where things get a little difficult for me. Cutter Gauthier, I mean, you know, we were lauding him earlier in the year for the shot volume that he had, but it is completely dried up. In his last 10 games, he's only taken 14 shots on goal, and he's got 0 shots on goal in each of his last 4 games. He has not taken a single shot in his last 4 games. And the only reason he's generated any DraftKings points is because he had an assist against the Vegas Golden Knights and blocked a shot. I'm not sure if I'm going to get there like much, if at all, with these depth lines on the Ducks. I might play some little mini stacks or some one-offs here of, some of the guys you mentioned too, like Gauthier, Larson, Killorn, maybe some Brett Leeson. I don't hate the idea of playing Brock McGinn. The guy blocks 6.1 shots per hour of ice time. That's a really high number there. At $2,500, I guess you get a little bit of a floor there. Mason McTavish on the 4th line feels really weird to me. $4,200 down there. He's still drawing 7.5% ownership for some reason. I guess maybe because he is on the second power play unit. So maybe that's where some of that ownership is coming from. Yeah, for me, I think it's probably going to be Anaheim 1 or bust, mixing some of these guys with some one-offs or some mini stacks. There's some defensemen that I really like from the Ducks, which I always really like Duck defensemen for some reason.
Well, let's get to him. Let's get to him right now. Let's not waste any more time. Who do you like, Zach?
Jacob Trouba, $4,500, bumped up to the top pairing. I think that's a pretty interesting spot here on this slate tonight. Obligatory mention of Radko Gudas at $3,300. Loves to block shots. For me, the third pairing is really interesting. Jackson Lacombe and Olin Zellweger. Lacombe is a guy that I've been playing a ton of this season. He's sitting around that $3,400 price range all year. Just does so much out there on the ice. 4.9 shots on goal per hour of ice time, 6.2 blocks. Olin Zellweger, guy loves to fire the puck. 7.4 shots on goal per hour on the top power play unit in a really positive matchup. Those are 2 guys that I'm going to be well over the field on tonight in terms of ownership, projecting for 7-8%. Those are some of the guys from the Ducks that I'm really liking on this slate.
Did a good job wasting time as I sat here realizing I didn't build my daily face-off lineup during this 37-minute episode. So gonna have to keep grinding here when we talk about goalies. But yeah, just a lot of $4,000 defensemen that look pretty solid tonight. Owen Power among my favorites. Keandre Miller's played some increased ice time since the Trouba trade. I think at $3,100, he's interesting to me. Lacombe's been great, as you mentioned. Still like Zellweger quite a bit. That's probably it. Don't mind throwing Zach Jones in if you need a minimum price defenseman, especially if you're playing New York 3. Trouba, the $2,000 increase in Trouba is hilarious. In terms of ownership tonight, Shabbat and Sanderson. Yeah, Sanderson's cooled off, but I mean at $5,200, fully correlating with that top line at 40% ownership. You can see why he's popular tonight. Let's talk about some goalies. I mean, not really a whole lot to talk about here, considering it's 2 games, but who are you playing the most of? Are you in line with ownership here where it's just kind of like Shesterkin, Allmark, Gibson, Luukkonen in that order, or you a little bit different?
Yeah, I'll probably be somewhere around that order there. I'll probably be around pretty even on all 4 of these guys. It's just really going to depend on what my build is and who I'm stacking with who. Again, as I mentioned earlier, like all 4 of these guys have had a lot of success against these opposing teams. Igor Shesterkin, 9 wins in 13 games, 921 save percentage. Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, 6 games played, only 2 wins, 929 save percentage. John Gibson, 8 games against the Senators, 4 wins, 945 save percentage. Ridiculous. Linus Ullmark, granted, this is pretty much all coming with Boston. 7 games played, 3 wins, 925 save percentage. I'm probably the coolest on UPL and Linus Ullmark. Ullmark has just really struggled this season. 898 save percentage, negative 0.9 goals against average. He's the only goaltender on the slate with a negative goals saved above average mark. So those are probably the 2 guys I guess I'll be coming in the least on. A little more ownership towards Shesterkin and John Gibson, I think.
There you have it. As I try to pull up my daily face-off lineup. Okay, let's get to today's hat trick pick challenge. If you want to participate in today's hat trick pick challenge, be sure to comment your hat trick pick in the comment section of the video on YouTube, not the live chat. So we have a track record. We had Mikko Rantanen score a hattie last night, but nobody picked Mikko on the number 1 line to target. So no winners last night. But if you have the winner tonight on tonight's 2-gamer, we get you $25 gift card to nationgear.ca. Zach, you won yesterday's daily face-off head-to-head. You're first in a little bit, so you get to go first today. Who's your hat trick pick?
Going with the Breadman, Artemi Panarin, New York 1. They're doing the thing tonight.
Okay, yeah, that makes me feel not good. As I said, I was all in on them, which I probably will be in my legitimate builds, but fading them in the daily face-off head-to-head. So if you're right there, I'm getting absolutely cooked in the head-to-head tonight. My hat-trick pick for this evening, I believe I picked him the other day, and he didn't score the hat-trick, but I'm going to go right back to it. Troy Terry for a hattie tonight. He's been great. I had him as a streaming candidate in season long this week, and he got off to a great start. So I'm going to go with Troy Terry. Again, if you want to comment your hat-trick pick in the comment section of the video on YouTube, we'll enter you for free to the hat-trick pick challenge for a $25 gift card to Nation Gear. Let's get to today's daily face-off. Zach, as I mentioned, you brought the record to 19-20 on the season, so you can take it away first with your lineup. Oh my gosh. I don't know why anybody's playing Shane Pinto and then he's just in there. I love that.
Yeah, I don't know, man. He just kind of fits salary wise. So it was between him and Ryan McLeod, and I don't know. I just thought, you know what, he's drawing ownership, so might as well throw him in there, I guess.
Hilarious.
I don't really know what this build is, to be totally honest with you. I wanted to get Ottawa 2 in there. I like Giroux and Gaudette. I think Gaudette's a solid value play at $2,900. Wanted some of that New York 1 in there. Vincent Trocheck, Artemi Panarin, Brady Tkachuk. He just kind of fit in there at $8,600. I think he's got obviously an excellent floor and lots of upside. And then two of my favorite defensive plays on the slate, Braden Schneider, really love him at $3,500. Correlates well with that number one line for the New York Rangers as well. And Jacob Trouba, $4,500. Still really trying to figure out what DraftKings is doing with the pricing of him. $2,500 in his Ducks debut, which was hilarious because I don't even think he hit value in that game. Now he's back up to $4,500, which is still below where he was with the Rangers. Makes no sense to me, but I like him as a play, so jammed him in there tonight.
Yeah, as I mentioned, I built mine 7 seconds ago. So here's what I came up with. Really like Terry Vetrano. I still like that Ducks top line. Just tremendous floor, tremendous shot volume at really, really nice price tag. So started there. Got them with Zellweger. I think he's a really solid defensive play. Lacombe would have been probably a prudent option, but I didn't really like anybody else in that range. I think I would have about $3,900 left for that last defense, but not a whole lot there that I liked that didn't play for the New York Rangers. So Nick Jensen made the team at $2,600. Plays big minutes. It's pretty much all I'm expecting out of him. Then 2 mini stacks, Josh Norris and Drake Batherson. No Brady Tkachuk, but I'm just going to pick off all those assists and on your Brady Tkachuk goals, and then mini stack of Tage Thompson and JJ Peterka. So really like the value you get tonight with guys like Norris, Terry, Vetrano, Peterka, Batherson. They all feel like really, really solid plays in that 5K range. So try to jam in as many of them as possible. And then, that left me obviously with no New York Rangers in the lineup. So I went with Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen at $7,400. I feel like he's a pretty good goalie option tonight, considering the Rangers have been just so sluggish. If that continues at all, Luukkonen at $7,400, who's been, for the most part, very good this year, seems like a fine play. So that is today's daily face-off head-to-head. I realized I didn't really talk about my favorite goalies, but it's a 2-game slate. So there's, just don't negatively correlate against your own lineup. You should be fine. But I do like the value here with Gibson, Luukkonen. I think they're fine. Gibson or Doswall, just tremendous leverage against a 40% owned Ottawa 1. I mean, if you combine the ownership, what do we got here? Like Ottawa 1 is the wrong thing. Ottawa 1 is 24% for Ottawa 2, 41% for Ottawa 1. Just crazy, crazy stuff. So, Gibson seems like a really nice leverage play in those big tournaments as well. Just a quick reminder, a couple people dropping hat-trick picks in the live chat. Make sure you drop them in the actual chat below the video, please. And shout out to our friends at rotogrinders.com for providing us with projected ownership today. If you want to get $20 off your first month at RotoGrinders NHL Premium, you can do so by clicking the link in the description of the video on YouTube. Take everything you learned in today's show, run it through their optimizer, build the optimal lineup, win big dough. And if you want to join the DFO DFS Discord, also a link in the description of the video on YouTube. Join that Discord. It's growing every single day. We chat nonstop. We really just drop all of the information that you need to know in the warm-ups as well, so you don't miss a thing. Don't miss any of those lineup changes, especially tonight with not knowing what the Anaheim Ducks lines are going to look like. That's going to be helpful. And make sure on your way there, you smash the like button for us. Over 840 people watching right now, so please smash that like button. Let's get us over 100 likes on a video this year. Fell 60 likes short of that mark yesterday. Really, really disappointed still. Basically, I talk for 45 minutes and end up very disappointed every single day. Sad stuff, really. Zach, any final remarks here?
I don't know, man. I'm scared. Somebody hold me. I'm scared of this slate, man. I don't know what the hell's gonna happen, but
I'm scared.
Get some chaos.
Yeah, just embrace the chaos. That's what I always say. Embrace the weird, embrace the funky builds, do some crazy shit tonight. Just have some fun. Who knows where these two games are going to go? Good luck tonight. Hopefully, you return with more money in your bankroll tomorrow than you had tonight. Listen to our friend John and smash that like button. We'll see you guys back here tomorrow for a 14-game slate. We should be live at 4 p.m. Eastern as long as everything goes well with the charts. We'll see you guys back here tomorrow. Until then, cheers.
Cheers.